NEC needed their own Super Mario and Red Corporation responded. It's Bonk's adventure on the TurboGrafx 16. Krillin from Dragon Ball is sleeping peacefully inside a giant stone owl, when suddenly he wakes up and starts beating the crap out of dinosaurs. Incidentally, he frees them from their mind-corrupting eggshell helmets and finds out their princess and homeland are under control of Gon the dinosaur. Are you tough enough to make it to the end and earn the so-coveted kiss from your gorgeous dinosaur waifu? Bonk's Adventure is another one of those early platformers that you might think play very standard until you actually experience them yourself. And sure enough, some of it is very bog standard for its time, very flat level design, things to collect everywhere for points, hard start restore your life meter, and you get a 1-up every 20,000 points. The game has a very unique and super weird style to it though. Bonk takes damage from jumping on enemies, that's because all attacks have to be done using his ginormously massive head. Okay, it's not that large, but it's still pretty big. As a 2-button controller game, it's not hard to figure out how to do this sort of thing. One button is for jumping and the other is for attacking. Using the attack button midair makes Bonk flip to crush enemies and often the ground under the top of his head. You can also do this while you're standing to do a simple headbutt, dealing half as much damage. Maybe not as obvious are Bonk's air rolls. If you press the attack button again after making him flip with his head down, he will do a half spin to land on his feet. This of course makes you vulnerable to damage, but once you realize this is a thing, you can keep mashing the attack button to stall Bonk's fall midair to cover longer distances. Some of the bonus games are impossible to clear without using this air stall. Some level segments become way easier if you can do this, and some of the boss fights also get easier. One of the most fun things to do with this move is bouncing enemies over and over to get easy extra score. Over 2000 points if you don't let them hit the ground too early. But since this is an actual mechanic meant to be used, don't make the same mistake I did and assume you're going to trivialize the rest of the game with this. The game is very unforgiving with its invisibility frames and hitboxes. The split second you're not in attack animation makes you very vulnerable, and most bosses require precise aiming. The turbo function of the TurboGrafx 16 controller helps, but it's by no means required outside of one bonus game. Still, if you can use the turbo button, just do it. It doesn't break the game and might as well spare your thumb with the constant mashing. Like Mario, Bonk also has his own power-ups. Anytime with this one-piece looking meat thingy, he looks more angry and his damage increases. The power-up is temporary, but if you manage to find another piece of meat before it wears off, then you gain a little over 10 seconds of invincibility. If you're lucky, you can find a giant piece of meat and get the full power-up invincibility right away. Getting hit reduces your power-up if you're in the second stage, or make you go back to normal if you only had one. I was disappointed by how the power-ups work. Makes sense that it'd be temporary since the increased damage makes short work of bosses, but they wear off way too fast. The animation that plays every time you eat meat also gets a little annoying. I guess they're better than nothing, and they still help while they last. This isn't a hard game, nor is it a walk in the park. There is some tricky in placement at times, but after my 3 playthroughs I can't help but blame the difficulty on the lack of polish, and the hitboxes and iframe problems I mentioned minutes ago. You simply don't get enough invincibility time after getting hit. Bonk bounces back when that happens, which sometimes makes things even worse, making you get hit by an enemy, then another. The hitboxes often look like they're not in your favor. I can get hit by sprites half a foot away from me, but my hits have to be really precise against some enemies or else the game will make me lose health. Okay, you saw that right? How did I get hit? Sometimes Bonk just doesn't respond to my inputs as fast as he should when I want to jump back up after a landing. The controls feel a little stiff. How do you get around those problems? Well, my personal recommendation is just deal with it by stocking as many lives as you can as early as possible. Master the enemy bouncing trick and aim for perfect bonus games. Unless you're a Bonk's Adventure Pro, you will lose some lives not quite fairly, so you need that access. I went into this game with no guides and no manual, but I know for a fact you can increase your heart amount because I saw a few screenshots showing 4 or 5 hearts. But I have absolutely no idea if these smiley faces have something to do with it or if there are any extra heart containers anywhere. I finished the game with 9 lives to spare and not even once did I see my health meter increase. This might make some people upset, but I'm not a fan of the graphics. I like that they stand out from the crowd of its era, and the character animations are fine, very whimsical, fitting the weird setting of the series. But personally, I hate how flat and barren the game looks. There were a lot of NES games that had more detail by the time this game came out. The levels never seem to have a lot going on either. Too much basic platforming, too many areas that look similar. The music is fine. The audio quality sounds like Game Boy music, which I'm usually not into, but there are a few tracks that ended stuck in my head without making me want to hit it against the wall to forget. Definitely a few memorable tracks. There's also a unique style to it. I don't have any complaints about the sound effects. They sound like they'd be in a NES game, but that's probably just me not knowing what to expect from the TurboGrafx. Overall, the game sounds fine and stands out with its visual and music, but it wouldn't be in my list of games to showcase the graphical power of the system. The design of the game for 1989 standards is solid, but there is this ever-present lack of polish that drags it down. It makes me think there were a lot of side-scrollers with mascots in the late 80s and early 90s, and only a select few are remembered fondly or achieved big success. People can point out Mario being bland or Sonic having BS hazard placement all they want. A big reason those earned their success was polish. Well, a bit less for Sonic, but definitely true for Mario platformers. A series that to this day has a level of quality assurance absolutely no big budget game franchises can compare. Bonk's Adventure is one of those games that could have used a better QA and fine-tuning. Even so, I had fun with it. Yeah, I enjoyed it. I've been trying to understand why some 2D games that don't feel quite as comfy as your Mega Mans and Super Marios are just pure frustration that want nothing to do with them, and other games that don't feel as good to control as they should still end up feeling fun to play. And the conclusion I got came to me as I was watching Game Center CX, a Japanese TV show where a middle-aged comedian is asked to beat all sorts of retro games. A game can have weird or unintuitive controls, and it can have physics that challenge your expectations in a bad way. It can have a myriad of problems, but the thing is, sometimes adapting to how the games work is part of the experience. And if you can adapt and make sense of it, even clunky games can become fun. A bad game is a bad game that even after you understand how its clunkiness works, still doesn't feel good. A game for which the question, "Am I playing this wrong?" has only one answer: no. I think Bonk's Adventure has some clunkiness to it, but it's a very short experience and gives you a lot of extra chances to keep trying, from the bonus games to the options of continuing from the first area of a stage after a game over. And once you get used to the clunkiness, it reveals itself an easy game to complete. Besides, how can I not recommend a game with an Ashita no Joe reference in it? I'm gonna recommend it to fans of retro games for sure, definitely not recommend it to anyone who is just beginning to get into it. If you don't already own this game on your Wii, Wii U, TurboGrafx 16 or PC Engine Mini, all I can say is play it any way you can. And that ends the video. Thank you for watching. If you liked the review, go check out my other videos or subscribe for more upcoming game reviews. Have a good one, guys.